REAADDY. What is going on, everybody? My name is Blitzwinger. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new FanBoyPotion video. And today I'm doing something a little bit different. It's something that I wanted to try out, see if you guys enjoy it, yay or nay. Let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like if you guys like this idea. Let's go ahead and aim for 500 likes. And if we could reach that goal, I'll do another episode of this on the next week. So essentially, what is this exactly? Well, that would be basically a weekly review series for Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live. So with the draft having happened already, and with that being said, of course, the shows are now distinctly different. The shows are unique, or at least that's what they're attempting to do. And I enjoyed both the episode of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown for this week, and I wanted to go ahead and discuss that. I want to talk to you guys about what I thought, what I liked, what I didn't like, and so on and so forth. And of course, as always, if you guys like this idea, I would love to make this a weekly thing, as I mentioned before, whereby basically on a weekly basis, I will go on ahead and discuss both Raw and SmackDown, and kind of almost in a podcast / just quick conversation way, let you know what I thought. This won't be too in depth because I do not want it to be like super ridiculously long, because I don't think that's going to be particularly exciting nor fun, but I hope that you guys will still enjoy it. So with all of that in mind, let's get rocking and rolling and start discussing the topics of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. So first and foremost, I would definitely say that Raw was a much more solid show. I really did enjoy it. This is the first time that I watched the entire show from beginning to end in probably 3 or 4 years at this point. Like, I've not watched an entire show, like, from the beginning to the end. There's been points where, like, I'll watch the first 20 minutes, the last 20 minutes, or, like, you know, somewhere in between. Sometimes I'll kind of nitpick stuff, fast forward through things, and so on and so forth. But it's been a very long time since I've watched the entire show. And this week, it was really good. It was very compelling. I really truly enjoyed myself from beginning to end. I thought they did a very good job with the entire, or the entirety of the show. And hopefully this is the beginning of many good episodes of Raw. Now, with that being said, kind of a quick little summary of SmackDown as well. I personally felt that SmackDown felt somewhat lacking, but I also feel like maybe there's a reason as to why that is, and that's because, you know, a lot of the talent that we see on SmackDown, you know, the guys that, for example, were in the main event, which was, spoiler alert, Apollo Crews, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, a lot of these guys that were in that match weren't particularly established. And what I mean by that, it's not that they are not known. I mean, Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin are not particularly well known, but I just felt like, you know, somebody like Dolph Ziggler has been run so far into the ground over the last few years that it was very difficult to get excited and kind of have momentum for those characters. However, I will say that hopefully this will be kind of a rejuvenation of their personas, and hopefully this will be the beginning of them really truly being established as possible main eventers and intriguing stars to watch in the future. So that's kind of my first few cents about both shows, and with that in mind, let's get into it with each show and talk about it in a bit more depth. We've got Finn Balor right here and Seth Rollins. I'm going to be playing through this matchup because it feels obviously very appropriate, since we know that this will be our main event for SummerSlam, or one of our main events for the Universal Championship, which, by the way, I think is a horrendous name. I think that's a very weird title to be named, because it's like, you're the champion of the universe. I guess there was just like another way that Raw needed to be better than SmackDown. Was SmackDown has the world champion, but Raw is going to have the universal champion. So it's like, yeah, if there are any aliens out there and they want to wrestle for the title, you're going to have to go to Raw. So don't really like that name, but I will say that again, it made sense. We knew they were going to introduce a title on Raw that would be kind of the world heavyweight equivalent of a title, and I think that the two competitors that we'll be facing for that championship, being Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, is really cool. It's very exciting, and it's really awesome. Now, let's not get to that, because we're going to discuss that during SummerSlam predictions and such, but as far as the way that the show started, I thought it was really good. They had the entire roster out there. You had Stephanie and you had Mick Foley basically saying, hey, there's going to be 2 Fatal 4-Way matchups tonight that will then decide the winners within those Fatal 4-Way matches will go on to compete in the main event, and the winner of the main event matchup will then be the person that faces Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship at SummerSlam. Again, I love that kind of thing because I think it's very, very, very smart to build the show. It is something that I've heard Stone Cold Steve Austin mention several times on his podcast, and several other people have talked about that whole concept of how for a 3-hour show to be compelling, you have to introduce something almost kind of like a breadcrumb path that will begin at the very beginning of the show, and then that whole notion should be available throughout the show so that there's a motivation to continue to watch the entirety of the show. To me, I think they did that. I think they did that in spades for this particular episode of Raw. They did that in a two-way or in twofold of ways where, first and foremost, they had the Women's Championship match, which they were teasing from the very beginning, and they were building up to it, and they were pointing out, like, okay, here's Sasha being interviewed, here's Charlotte on her way, so on and so forth. They continued to build this momentum throughout the entire night for this championship matchup. And then additionally to that, they did a great job of building up the whole idea of, tonight, we're going to find out who fights Seth Rollins. We're going to find out who will be challenging Seth Rollins at SummerSlam and who will be the first Universal Champion at SummerSlam. I think that's a really, really compelling way of telling a 3-hour episode of Raw. It felt like it flew by because the matches all got sufficient time. There were 4 tremendous matchups on that night. The 2 Fatal 4-Way matches were absolutely excellent. They did an excellent, excellent job. All the competitors. The first match saw the debut of Finn Balor against Cesaro, Kevin Owens, and was Chris Jericho in that one? No, he wasn't, right? I think that was, let's see, that was Finn Balor, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, and no, not Sheamus. Sheamus was in the second one as well. Who was the last competitor in that match? Why am I forgetting? I'm completely blanking out on who the last person was. Someone else. I completely blanked out. I don't know why. But that matchup was really, really, really... Oh, Rusev, of course. My goodness. That's the one thing that does kind of stink, is that the United States Championship wasn't particularly well taken care of. But it was a great match. Finn Balor was able to be victorious after pinning actually Rusev, I believe, after the coup de grace. So that was a tremendous match, which then sets up now Finn Balor's in the main event. He's made his appearance first night on Raw, and he's already in the main event and already potentially going to be challenging for the championship, which is something that I think a lot of people did not think would happen, because I think a lot of people believe that the only reason Finn Balor is being brought up to the roster is to represent the Cruiserweight division, and he was going to be the Cruiserweight champion. I hoped that that would not be the case, and they proved us that it wouldn't be. He's already being treated as a main event player, and that is awesome. So, with that in mind, the second Fatal 4-Way matchup of the night featured Roman Reigns, featured Chris Jericho, Sheamus, and Sami Zayn. That was a really, really great match. Again, very, very, very good matchup. Once again, Roman Reigns was able to get the victory, which obviously a lot of people were worried about. Uh-oh, they're going to let Roman win again. But then, in the main event of the evening, we saw a big surprise when Finn Balor was able to not just win the match, but win clean, pinning Roman Reigns in a very, 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 very excellent match. Those two put on a clinic. I thought that there was a really cool dynamic between the two of them, because Roman was substantially bigger than Finn, but it didn't felt like Finn was not a big enough star at any point, which was great. It felt really, really, really compelling. The one thing I was a little bit concerned about was the fact that I was kind of surprised by the reaction that Finn Balor got from the Raw crowd that night, because it wasn't particularly, like, huge. He didn't get, like, this huge pop, like, for example, like Bayley did during the pay-per-view and stuff, which is why I was almost kind of questioning, like, was that really the best time to have him debut? I'm not sure. I don't know what the answer is, but I guess time will tell. We'll see how he will be received on future episodes of Raw and such, but that was my only concern. Now, the other huge, obviously, moment of the show was when we saw Sasha Banks defeat Charlotte for the Women's Championship, which was very surprising. I think myself and many people included really thought that she would win the championship, but it wouldn't happen until SummerSlam. However, they went ahead and pulled the trigger early and let her win in an absolutely tremendous match. In fact, I would possibly even say that that was the match of the night. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Fatal 4-Way and the other matchups were absolutely tremendous, but I thought that they put on a clinic, and both of these ladies can hang with any of the guys. Like, they are really, 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 really super duper talented. So that was a tremendous, tremendous matchup between those two. And again, there hopefully is only bigger and better and brighter things to come for the women's division on Raw. So, final thing that I did want to point out is that I also did really, really enjoy the way that the club assaulted and went after the New Day, because I think that it sets up an interesting dynamic between those two tag teams, or those two factions, I guess. So that's really intriguing, because I'm hopeful that the club becomes kind of a more big menacing force, and I actually think that the club should be the ones that defeat the New Day at SummerSlam to give them that extra challenge to win, that to then have the New Day kind of chase them and try to get the titles from them, because I think that will be pretty compelling and might tell a pretty intriguing story. So with that being said, overall, I really did enjoy Raw. I love the new adjustments to the presentation. I love the fact that they introduced new camera angles. The fact that they moved the announcement table, I thought was actually cool, because it gave you more room at ringside. Plus now, there won't be just like this cheap strategy of like, oh, we need, you know, an interesting moment to happen. Let's go to the announce table and go through it. Now it's like, if they want to go to the announce table, they have to fight all the way outside the ring and all the way up to the ramp and get down there. So I think that that's pretty cool and quite compelling. So I like that quite a bit. And I like the intro. I like the logo. Everything that was introduced by Raw, I was very, very, very pleasantly surprised. And again, as I said, I really am hopeful that this is the beginning of many, many good episodes of Raw, because I think that what they did here for the first one was absolutely tremendous. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the night after, which was Smackdown. For me personally, I gotta say, I don't know, again, this is very much a personal thing, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people who will disagree about this, but I did not like whatsoever the intro for Smackdown. And what I mean by that, I like the package, like the video package was cool, but I was not a fan of the music that they chose. It kind of threw me off, especially because they kept using it throughout the show. Anytime that they had kind of like these moments where they would go to commercial, or they'd have the announcers talking, they'd play that song. And it always felt, I don't know, it felt almost like too much of a theme song of a wrestler, because it felt like at any moment someone was about to come out, like it was some sort of a wrestler making their way out. Maybe that's just because it's new and we're not used to it, and hopefully we will get used to it over time and we'll be able to actually adjust to it. But I don't know, it just felt very, very, very strange and kind of did not fit. Look at that, Finn missing that dive. That was pretty crazy. But it just did not feel like it actually fit the particular show, or like the moments in which they used it. So I don't know, for me personally, I did not particularly like the way that that song was chosen, and just the way that it sounded. The other thing, I felt like Smackdown kind of felt like, how would I say this? Raw felt very polished. It felt like they thought everything out. Everything that happened on the show felt like it happened for a reason. There was specific intent to everything. There was reasoning and build up for everything to happen. Like it made sense. Like, okay, this is why Sasha wrestles Charlotte, and this is why performer X is fighting performer Y, and so on and so forth. Everything made sense, which is something that we haven't seen in a long time at this point. So to me, I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that that was a very smart thing and something that they really executed very, very well. So on SmackDown, that did not feel to be the case. It felt a lot more haphazardly put together. It felt a lot more like the product that we're kind of used to seeing, which is a little bit disappointing, because personally speaking, I was going into this, I was very much on the side of SmackDown, just like I think many people were. You know, it's the underdog show. It's the show that kind of, typically speaking, does not really get the same opportunities or equal chances to really pull things off. So going into the show, I think, just like many others, I felt like SmackDown would be the show that I like better and the show that I would cheer on, but I didn't feel like I could do that. After the episode of Raw that we saw, and after the way that SmackDown went, I don't know. I have to say, week one, I would definitely put the winning column for Raw. I think they put together a much more compelling TV show. Now, let's get into a little bit more depth about exactly what I liked and didn't like about SmackDown. For me, SmackDown had, I really liked the Randy Orton and Miz segment. I really thought that that was pretty good. I thought that, the way that they put all of that together was really clever in terms of, there was a nice edge to Randy. He wasn't, he felt like he was invested. He didn't feel like he was just phoning it in, or he didn't even want to be there. It felt very compelling the entire time. Like, he felt like he wanted to be there, and he's trying really, really, really hard. And that's the thing I will say about everyone. It didn't feel like anyone was, phoning it in, but it just didn't feel really organized at times. Like, for example, a perfect example would be the segment with the women, like Becky Lynch getting the victory over Natalya. Really cool, sets up some more of a contest there. But I feel like, for example, at that moment, it would have been really cool if Shane came out and said, like, look, Stephanie could introduce a World Heavyweight Championship. We're going to introduce a women's title. And we're going to have U6 in a tournament over the next 3 weeks or something like that, and then at SummerSlam we will find out the first women's universal champion, or whatever they're going to call it. I just think that would have been something that they could have done there. Again, it just felt like they were kind of like, okay, here are all the cast of characters of the female division, and they kind of just wanted to introduce them, but there was no compelling reasoning as to why they were introduced, and it just all felt kind of like thrown together at the last minute. So that was certainly the way that felt. For me, though, as I said before, really liked the Randy Orton and Miz segment. I also really liked the main event. I thought that they put together a really compelling match, especially because a lot of times whenever you have those matches with, like, 6 or 7 opponents at once, they are a complete mess. That match was really cool. The ending was tremendous. AJ Styles sold the heck out of that super kick, and I hope that finally Dolph Ziggler will begin to use the super kick as his finisher. I don't think he should use the zigzag anymore as a finisher. I just don't think it's very menacing, or it has that snap to it. That super kick, if he delivers it like that all the time, it's going to be awesome. And I mean, it's been talked about for ages about, like, Dolph wanting to use the super kick and such. So I hope that was kind of their final sign off to say, like, okay, you're allowed to use it. Go ahead. We allow you. And that's your finisher from now on. I think that he could use the zigzag as a signature move. Don't get me wrong. I have no problem with it. But I just don't want him to see it. I don't want to see him use the zigzag as a finisher anymore. It should just be as a signature, and use that super kick as a finisher and get it over week after week after week. Now, that was, of course, the biggest takeaway, was the fact that Dolph Ziggler was the one that was now the winner. And that was a really cool swerve, because I think, especially the way that the match was starting to go, John Cena was, like, attitude adjusting everybody in the ring. And I think myself included and many others thought, okay, here we go. Cena's probably going to win. Then when AJ hit the phenomenal forearm, it was like, okay, AJ's going to win. And then as Cena rolls out of the ring, suddenly, boom, that super kick. And the way that AJ sold it was just tremendous. It was super duper awesome. And then the 1, the 2, the 3, Dolph Ziggler, Dean Ambrose going to SummerSlam. That's going to be hopefully a really good match. And I hope that this is, again, the rebuilding phase of both Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose. And that's kind of my problem, as I said before. I think SmackDown is going to have some difficulty for the first few months establishing, or not just establishing, but reestablishing their stars as actual compelling stars. Because even Dean Ambrose, for weeks and weeks and weeks, and even months, I would say, was losing a lot. I mean, very big stakes matches, Dean Ambrose was always kind of losing. He'd lose to Bray Wyatt, he'd lose to Seth Rollins, he'd lose to Roman Reigns over and over and over again. So I think it became very difficult to believe in Dean Ambrose as somebody who is a winner, or somebody who is, like, going to be a true star, or, like, main event level star. They've definitely done a really good job with the last few weeks. He went over Seth and won that clean. Then after that, he won the triple threat. Again, very big deal. So I think that what SmackDown will have most difficulty with is convincing all of us that Dolph Ziggler, that Dean Ambrose, that all of these competitors that we have come to be used to kind of see in a different light are now main eventers, and we are compelled to watch them as main event performers. I think that will be kind of the most tricky thing for SmackDown to nail. But if they can, I think that they have a really, really good show on their hands as well. Overall, again, I didn't think it was a bad episode of SmackDown. I'm actually very hopeful that it will continue in the way that they've started. I hope they're not discouraged by maybe not as much of a positive response to SmackDown as there was for Raw. I hope they kind of take that more as a challenge to, raise the bar for SmackDown and continue to build and rebuild some of their stars. And I really think if they continue in this direction, 6 months down the line, Dolph Ziggler could be a very compelling performer. Dean Ambrose is going to be looked at as a very different level of star than what we look at now. And I hope that they continue in that direction, because I really do think that they have the chance to get there and slowly but surely build up to that. Final thing that I want to mention for SmackDown, final little nitpick, and then a final positive thing, of course, as well. Or I guess 2 things that I wanted to point out. Number 1, was the fact that obviously they did go on ahead and have, again, Daniel Bryan and Shane O'Mac come out at the end. I didn't like that at all because it just feels forced. It's like you don't need the commissioner and the general manager out there all the time, especially supposedly the brand that says, dude, we're all about opportunity and we're not about the authority. Well, they sure come out there a lot, and they sure have Daniel Bryan and Shane O'Mac try to pass off their, their overness with the crowd, just the capacity at which they're over with the crowd, over to Dean Ambrose, and in this case also Dolph Ziggler. I get what they're trying to do, but it's starting to feel a little bit too forced, and it happens too often, so I hope they start to back off of that and really let the performers shine instead of, once again, have that authority figure whole thing going on and let them take the limelight. Now, the other two things were, of course, the two returns, one that was actually on the show, the other that was teased or said that would be happening soon. So Rhino made his return to the Smackdown roster, which was rumored for a little while now. I thought that it was overall not too bad of an execution, so I didn't dislike it personally. I know some people didn't like it. I thought Heath Slater actually caught a pretty good promo about just like how upset he was, and I almost felt bad for Heath because I almost feel like the guy is like, he's so talented. Like he's always like, he takes that whole statement about like, taking chicken salad and turning it, or chicken, and turning it into chicken salad. I think he definitely does that a lot. So I hope that he gets a chance to continue to be a part of the roster, because I really do think that he has something to contribute, whether it be in just an entertaining role or maybe over time rebuild his character as well and give him another chance to be a bit more of a credible threat. Now, with that being said, of course, Rhino made his return against him, speared or gored him out of his boots, and he's back to the roster, so that will be interesting. I think that, again, Rhino could definitely be a great addition to help guys out like Apollo Crews or Baron Corbin, a guy like that, where having a feud with Rhino, he could learn, he could continue to polish his craft and get better and better in the ring, and more importantly, get more and more over with the crowd overall in what will hopefully be a pretty credible threat in the form of Rhino. The other big tease, which was the one that I was most excited for, was the fact that Shelton Benjamin will be returning to SmackDown. I think that is awesome. I think Shelton Benjamin could very easily feud for the championship. I hope that they consider him for that role, but even if they do not, I think Shelton Benjamin in the role of being Intercontinental Champion, having incredible matches with guys like, for example, again, Baron Corbin or The Miz and so on and so forth, I think could be really compelling TV, so I hope that that will be the beginning of many, many good things to come. Overall, I really like the build-up that SmackDown had. It felt a lot more like a to me, Raw felt like a nice kind of 2 steps up the ladder, and it felt very, very compelling because of that. Whereas SmackDown to me felt a lot more like 1 step up. But they've put together a really solid step together. They set up American Alpha's debut. They set up really nice video packages for obviously Shelton Benjamin and so on and so forth. So I'm very hopeful that SmackDown continues in this direction. I hope they're not discouraged, and I hope that the show continues to improve. So there you guys have it. That is the quick wrap-up. Well, somewhat quick. 20-minute wrap-up for both shows. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is something that I really do want to do on a weekly basis, but we'll see how you guys react. If you like it, again, leave a like. Of course, as I mentioned before, if we can hit 500 likes, I will go on ahead and make this episode again for next week. So basically, these episodes will go up right after SmackDown, so either Tuesday really, really, really late at night or on Wednesday. As always, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. See you later, alligators. Bye-bye, everyone.